Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, the new ABCs of Sales, Always Be Connected. This is a DOYO Live webinar being brought to you today by Value Digital Services, Integrated IT Group, and the Icons of Youngstown. Thanks so much wherever you're at in your day for dropping by to hang out with us on our DOYO Live webinar series. So we're super pumped about the fact that we've got this conversation going today about the sales process, something that obviously, you can't major in sales in school. In college, a lot of people are starting to get into that environment. Hey, Chuck, thanks for dropping by. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually ask you if you could please. I am sharing my screen, and if you can hear me, just go ahead and raise your hand for 1 second. That'll give me some indication that you actually can. You can hear me. You can see me. Thank you, Chuck. Thanks, John. Marianne, thank you for dropping by. I really appreciate it. I owe you a visit. And Sarah, thank you as well. It's been a few years since we've been able to connect. So in any case, today's webinar hopefully will go about 30 to 45 minutes. Want to make this as interactive as I could possibly make this through an online mechanism. And so we will have a chat-like feature that's going on throughout the day, so you can ask questions. I'll do my best to monitor that and answer those questions in the chat. You can actually chat with everybody that is in the webinar, and we're going to ask polling questions as well. So today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about social selling and what exactly does that buzzword mean today, how to use email effectively, some tracking technology, follow-up tips, turn your cold calling into warm calling, so that there's some cognitive fluency there and people recognize you before you actually reach out to them, bringing value and aligning some business objectives. A lot of times the pace of the company is going ahead of the pace of the people, meaning that the customers are the clients. So what I want to do is actually something a little bit different today. I want to start our webinar by asking a polling question. And while you're answering this question, it'll help to give me a little bit better opportunity to be able to frame up our conversation. What best describes your LinkedIn user habits? And so that you know, I'm the guy on the left-hand side with the hands in the pocket. My name is Dennis Schiraldi. I am the founder of DOYO Live, which is a digital marketing interactive design conference that has attracted 500 plus people in each of our first 2 years. Along with that, we've also had sponsor engagement. I've had a 15-plus year career in sales, marketing, and business development. I've been in B2B sales environments with huge enterprise selling type of experience where the average selling price is $220,000 and up for products. I've been involved in businesses where the nature of it is very referral and transactional based in the B2B and both B2C communities as well. And I have also been responsible for lead demand generation programs for big companies and small companies alike. So I'm very in tune, very light to the sales process in all aspects of it. I'm incredibly fascinated ongoing with sales in general. So thanks for giving me an opportunity today to be out here with you. So the first question is that, yes, half of our audience uses it every day, weekly logins, monthly users. So that's good. So you are using LinkedIn, which is really cool. And that's obviously a very important aspect of this. The next question I have is, do you use any of the following social media sites in your prospecting, relationship building, or even nurturing? So are you using Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram? And this is a multiple choice answer, so you can pick as many as you like. Are you using any of these mechanisms for anything a part of your sales process business? Obviously, are you making inroads? YouTube, interesting. LinkedIn, Facebook, obviously Instagram. Instagram's a great opportunity to be prospecting. Obviously, I think it's contingent upon your business, but LinkedIn, interesting enough, half the audience is using LinkedIn from a prospecting perspective, and so that's good to know. So I'm going to close this up, and then I've got another question. I'm full of questions today. Your most effective sales tool, and you only get one. phone, email, social, face-to-face, referral, other? And I think this is an important question because this is going to help lead us into kind of the pathway in the conversation about the differences in the sales process. And obviously, having a digital marketing conference, I think that the misnomers that people get caught up and lost in the fact that I'm such a digitally heavy person, but that's where the eyeballs are. And that's where so much of the arbitrage of time is being spent, that in order to be able to get to that face-to-face, which is typically my most effective sales tool, I have to use these other mechanisms. So anyway, kind of spread equally across the board. So let's get into some content. So let's just first acknowledge the fact that there is definitely a big, huge difference between prospecting and selling. And based upon the veteran level, prospecting obviously is the mechanism by which you're using in order to be able to solidify meetings along the way, whether those are warm relationship type of conversations to what probably, it's, I guess, a necessity, if you will, but everybody hates this from a cold calling perspective. But one of the things that we're going to do from the cold perspective today is try to give you some mechanisms of how you can make that warm. The other side of this equation is the sales process of once you've landed an opportunity with a potential prospect, they begin to become a person that's directly interested in your goods or services. You are starting to then uncover their needs and wants and desires, and you're beginning to be able to formulate your value propositions as to how you can bring them value. And you begin from that perspective, along with also bringing value to your clientele and proposing and negotiating as well. My philosophy is pretty simple when it comes to from a sales perspective, but obviously there's a lot of complexities with sales. Number one is that I'm always wanting to build connections to people and make relationships to people when they aren't buying, and that's actually my preference. Is I'll give you a prime example. So there's no secrets here. In full transparency, I'm willing to build a relationship with you today on March the 7th or March 8th, when our marketing conference that has an element of social selling isn't until August 2nd. I'm willing to become the expert and the voice of reason so that one day, 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road, that you're in the need for sales consultation, you remember this webinar that you participated in and say, wow, you know what, maybe that person can help our business out. I'm a connector. I want to be a person that is, one of the best ways that I can bring you value is connecting you with people that are in my network that can bring you value, and putting mutually needy people together for whether it's people, products, or services. And the more that I can do that, the more times or not my phone is going to ring, because of the fact I'm willing to connect people and help them solve their problems. And some of those calls that come in, I eventually will be the person that solves that problem. Make sure that I have expertise in my space. So, the depth of what you know in your industry and being recognized as a person that has expertise and not just fluff is incredibly important. So if you're selling healthcare IT products, knowing the industry, knowing the product, knowing the personnel, knowing the process is incredibly important. If you sell insurance, the same thing. Like, I want to go to somebody that understands the insurance process, because I don't want to be an expert on insurance. And that goes willing across the board. The next one is I'm willing to walk away. If I can't best suit your need or service, I'm going to win your respect by referring you to somebody that can, which is always difficult from a sales perspective because it's how we feed our families, right? So, and then I'm a huge believer in the fact that relationships are really important. It's great that if you like me, it's better if you respect me. It's great if I can challenge you in a good way with showing you some things that you weren't thinking about. But the better I understand your business, the more value I can bring you with return on investment. If you're going to buy X from me, I want to be able to show you what the 3, 5, 10, 20 times ROI is going to be for that investment. So let's get into social selling. And I kind of feel like this is a webinar that I've done in the past. And I kind of turn on my Jerry Seinfeld voice. Like, think about the skit that Jerry would do in this situation. He would be like, social selling. Isn't all selling social? Don't people have to talk to people? I don't get it. You pick up the phone. So yeah, absolutely. The term social selling became in vogue when we have all these social media and online landscapes that come into the mix, going back to 2007, that give us an opportunity to be able to build context with individuals online before we ever actually meet them in person. And I'm not talking from a stalking or from a trolling perspective, but you can really, if you have a meeting or you're prospecting an individual, you have a great opportunity between LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, to get to know the individual, know their likes, wants, and needs before you ever walk into a room. And that's something that all great salespeople have done historically through the period of time. My first sales call that I ever made in healthcare, I walked into a physician's office and I was taught to look around the room to see what colleges they attended, what items that were on their desks, so that in the nature of the conversation, you could begin to build relationship with that individual in that moment. Now, what's different with social media, and as much as it may make you crazy, is that all that information is out there prior to the meeting, that you don't have to case the joint like you're a cat burglar walking in for that conversation. You can actually go to Facebook and see that the individual just got back from a vacation in the Bahamas, or they've got a family, or they're on Instagram, or they went to what college and alumni group they're associated with, and who you may know before you even ever have to start having that conversation. Especially in Youngstown, Ohio, where DOYO Live takes place, we've got like not 5 degrees of separation, but like 1.5 degree separation. So this webinar is getting a little provincial, but that's the reality of it. And a lot of communities operate like that as well. So not only does social selling give you an opportunity to be able to have context with the individual, but it's also nurturing touch points along the way. So for instance, if you haven't heard back from somebody that you sent an email from for a while and you're wondering or not whether they're still alive, and they go to post a piece of literature on LinkedIn, well, that's a good opportunity for you to go and like that post to subtly let them know that they've got an email in their inbox from you. So the old mantra of sales was this, that you always got to be closing. This goes back to the cliche good old boys club of the Glengarry Glen Ross movie with, coffees for closers, and the winner gets to a set of steak knives. Second place gets to keep their job, and third place, you're out the door. And you can kind of go along the lines of any of that cliche stuff that you want to take a look at. But at the end of the day, in the world that we're living in today, and it's who are the people that are in your neighborhood, that Sesame Street mentality, which is probably the polar opposite of having a high aggression and being an aggressive sales individual, is to go back to what Sesame Street taught us about sharing and caring and being charismatic with connecting and those sorts of things that are very important. I tease my, car salespeople unfortunately have a very difficult job and get a very bad rap, but I tease the person that I go to that basically is a guy that I grew up with, but I've got the last several cars from off lease. And I tease him all the time when he calls me, because I feel like he calls me two times a year. Number one, when my lease is going to be up on my vehicle and on my birthday. And I'm like, I don't hear from you the rest of the year. Like, give me a like on Facebook occasionally. Follow me on follow me on Twitter. Do something. And that's the tendency. And if you look at the pantheon of careers out there that people like, dislike, and whatnot, sales is the oldest profession known to history. And I know that there's some other professions that butt up against that. But when you think about it, somebody obviously, from a sales perspective, everybody has this job, whether you're a professional services and you're an attorney, you're a physician, you actually have a sales in your title, or you're in a business that you're basically a person that works in the business. You may not be signing somebody to a PO, but you're selling your ideas internally within your business. So there is importance in this process throughout everything, and we'll get a little bit more into value here in a moment. So LinkedIn, incredibly powerful tool. If you think about life prior to LinkedIn, if you use LinkedIn for anything beyond a database, how did you ever find the people that you wanted to sell something to or connect with? That was a very difficult task. In healthcare, prior to LinkedIn, we would drive down the hospital. We would pull off the expressways across Route 80 or on the turnpike, wherever there was a blue sign. And the blue sign wasn't the LinkedIn sign, but it was a blue sign with the hospital, the blue hospital signs. And we would just stop. And we would start in the radiology department because it was radiology sales. And that's how we did it. But LinkedIn has provided us with a lot of stuff. First of all, know LinkedIn's got 500 million total users, 250 million active users every day. 40% are daily users and 4% beyond that, 44% earn $75,000 or more a year. 41% of all millionaires use LinkedIn, and it used to be a job recruitment tool. Now it's the #1 tool for a database. So here's 3 things, and I could spend an entire seminar, and I do workshops. So I don't know if that's a subtle push or not, but I do workshops on LinkedIn for businesses where we go in for a half day or a full day. So LinkedIn can be an entire day. Here's 3 things that you could take away from LinkedIn today and implement to improve what you're doing. #1 is complete your profile. That's a really important factor for all LinkedIn users, whether or not you post stuff. And matter of fact, I recommend that you don't even have to be actively posting stuff on LinkedIn. So make sure that you've got a profile picture. Industry tends to dictate the profile picture, but make sure that it's a warm, engaging, smiling picture. People will obviously want to do business with people that look like they're warm, inviting, and engaging, and obviously knowledgeable. I also put a background picture that kind of describes my business, but make sure that you've got your name, your full titles filled out, your university is a very important key ingredient, and your location. And the reason being is not to get too far down the path into search engine optimization, especially with salespeople and whatnot, but all of the internet works off of keyword searches and search preferences. And so within platforms themselves like LinkedIn, if you have whatever industry that you're in your title, and when people are searching for various information, that they will find that. The other thing to note is that when somebody actually searches your name on the internet, typically the first thing that will pop up is your LinkedIn profile. The second thing that I would tell you about your profile is to make sure that you write it in the first person. So I don't know, raise your hand if you are a professional athlete or even a professional sports coach and you're on the webinar today. And the reason I say that is typically those people talk in the third person. So they would say, Dennis is the founder of DOYO Live. Dennis is also the founder of the Icons of Youngstown. Dennis is, and so we don't talk like that. So you shouldn't talk like that on your LinkedIn profile. Make it a personal story. Make it about you in the first person, and then list your previous job experiences as well. If you complete your profile, that's half the battle. The next is manage and make connections. I have built out my connections over the period of the decade that I've been on LinkedIn based upon the industries. So I've got healthcare, I've got marketing, I've got Youngstown where I'm from, and I continue to build out my connections and I manage those connections. So not only will you get an invite from me, but here's the best practice. If you are making connections on LinkedIn, the very next thing that you should not do when somebody accepts your invite is solicit them for a meeting or anything of any sort. And the reason being is that you build a connection and you want to have a good networking connection. You don't want to just use that contact for whatever self-serving purpose. It's okay to send them a note back saying, thanks for connecting with me and accepting my invite, and I look forward to networking with you. But otherwise, put those people into a funnel type of conversation. So in the event that you invite them to accept a LinkedIn connection, don't ask them to a meeting for coffee or for anything within the next month to even 2 months. Have enough people that you're filtering through that in 30 to 60 days, you can reach out to them and say, hey, we connected a month ago. I've seen some of your posts on LinkedIn, and it would be great if we could get together to learn a little bit more about what each other does. That's the type of message that will resonate more. I get these solicitations, accept my invite, yes, and then I get solicited, I can help you. And it's like, how can you help me? You don't even know me. So, and then the other thing is, I'll tell you, is that LinkedIn is not a dating site. And some of you might sit there and chuckle, but I know plenty of female advisory board members for DOYO Live that are on LinkedIn that get solicited for dates on a pretty consistent basis, which I know from them is fairly flattering, but they're also severely offended by the nature of the fact that this is obviously not a pickup site. It's obviously a business networking site and an opportunity to expand your business. The third thing that you could do is monitor your feed. So the people that you see here are people that I am looking to finalize an agreement or talking at our conference. And by subtly just monitoring your feed for people that you're working with in your sales process, whether you're prospecting or you have sent them over some sort of message in email or phone solicitation, by simply liking, commenting, or sharing their content within your feed lets them know, and it's a micro way to provide a nurturing touch point to remind them that you know that they exist. By the way, let me pause here. If there's any questions, I'll check the Q&A, but ask questions. We'll provide you with any answers that I possibly can. All of these social media platforms have business development opportunities for you to operate like LinkedIn, to where you can like, share, and comment. You can follow businesses and people that are out there that you want to do business with and that you want to network with. On Twitter, you can retweet companies that you're prospecting. You can retweet their content. And so the next question begets as well, the person that's managing the social media is probably not my audience. You know what? You're probably right. But the person that manages social media probably can act as a gatekeeper and an influencer into that conversation. On the left, I know people that have YouTube that record videos that are private videos that are 30 seconds to a minute in length, and include that link into a solicitation email that says that why you're reaching out, what the value it is that you're trying to bring to them, to also framing up a meeting before they get to them. So very interesting aspect there. And then Instagram, I won't go into it. I think this is untested by many, but for us, I'm able to actually leverage direct messages on Instagram back to people to create awareness and to get engagement. And then last but not least, Facebook, a ton of opportunities out there on Facebook, whether it's your profile or a page to interact with content. I absolutely, positively, and fascinated and love Facebook Messenger, especially from a sales process. That people get that message, that they're active on Facebook. And I've actually been experimenting with trying a FaceTime call or a messenger call and doing kind of like the face-to-face call from a sales perspective, but obviously have not gone that route. So all of these platforms have the ability to be able to social sell. From an email perspective, I'm just going to walk you through and kind of share what I do. And I didn't finish out this slide. That's not great. That looks a lot better. In my emails, I have a methodology that I utilize. And first of all, we've all become a culture of people that are going to skim content and don't pay attention to the paragraph form. But we get wrapped up in our own day to think that our content is so much better. So that's oftentimes when we start writing these soliloquies about how great the business is that we are. I end every one of my sales emails, so if there's anything that's important for this, with a call to action. I never send out an email from a prospecting perspective to where I would say, hey, thanks so much, and if you get a minute, give me a call. There are links. There are companies now that provide a software that you can put a link into an email that says grab time on my calendar. And I don't like that. I like to control the conversation. And I do that by putting in, the fact that I'd love to meet up. I'm not sure if it's a fit for their business. So I think that they would be, but we have to vet that. And the other thing is that, I'm looking, some people like to get specific. Hey, let's meet on Tuesday at 1 or Thursday at 10. I generally will say if you have any open time in the next week or two. But I always end it with a question. And if I even get a response, I'll even ask a question in that following email. I have some sort of come out line. What is the excitement or the description? I'd like to cover that up. So, I stopped by the office. I dropped something with you. I wanted to follow up. Here's what this is. Here's a description of what it is. And here's a summary of the benefits. If I were to put this in a long paragraph form, that would go absolutely nowhere. So I highly recommend that. Again, you do what you want. This works for me. Next up is that typically what happens from a sales perspective, and there's studies that are out there, that it's 7 to 10 touches that ultimately that it takes in order to be able to basically just get a meeting with an individual. One call close is obviously expected by sales managers, but it's just not a reality in the real world of the day-to-day from a sales perspective. So between creating touch points with phone and email, I will bounce them back off one another, and I'll get more specific with, would you like to schedule a 30-minute meeting? Is it possible? We're running a promotion to create a sense of urgency. And then oftentimes what I'll do is I'll reference the fact that I just made a phone call and now I'm following up with email, or vice versa. Hey, I just sent you an email. I thought I'd give you a quick voicemail to maybe explain this a little bit better. So I'm creating these multiple touch points and I'm not giving up on it. The other thing that you could do, and just go out and Google email tracking software. And this is really interesting stuff that I've been using for about 5 years now. I use the HubSpot product. They've changed it a little bit. But basically what this does is when you send an email, you're not asking for a read receipt. You don't need to do that anymore. You'll actually get a pop notification saying that the individual on the other end actually opens your email, and even if they forward it or click on it or do different things to it from your email. And why I love this is that if I send an email and I see somebody opens my email, I know that they're attentive. I can time my phone calls based upon that as well. So Google email tracking software. So here's the methodology with the phone. I'll call and leave a voicemail, and I'll reference an email. I'll call a second time on a week later and email somebody and then reference that. I call back-to-back weeks, and I'll do that for as long as until somebody basically tells me no, that they're not interested. And I will rotate that so that there's distance in between each of these calls. So one week, you might get a phone call and email from me on a Tuesday, and then the following week, we'll do it at the bookend of the week, maybe on a Friday. And the reason I'm doing that is it's longer than just a week, and it feels like it's a long space in between that. So I'm not being a complete pain in the ass with that methodology. I don't leave a voicemail every time that I call somebody. And then when I get somebody on the phone. So the reason why that we tactically have to take all these touch points with social media and email is that's where the attention is. And when I started my career in sales, I could probably make 100 phone calls and I probably can talk to 40 people. And those numbers have diminished over the years to the point where if I made 100 phone calls today, I may talk to 5 people and I'm almost shocked that somebody picked up the phone. The tendency is that when you get somebody on the phone or even in person for a quick, pop in, if those still exist, which they do in my world, I have tried to discipline myself, because my tendency and most people's tendency is to speak faster, to get it out, because you don't want to waste people's time. But the problem with that is the person on the other end cannot process that, and you don't control the conversation. So I've actually deliberately tried to discipline myself to speak slower. It feels like I'm going very, very slow, but the reality is that I've probably slowed myself down to normal talking speed. And because of this, I'm able to articulate it. They're able to listen. And it's actually been a real game changer for me over the past 5 years. I'm always deliberate. I know that I'm interrupting the day. I oftentimes will acknowledge the fact that I know that I'm interrupting the day, and I apologize for that, but I felt that it was important. And if there's a better time for me to call back or email, I'd just like to set a time that we can talk about what it is that's so important to me or to you, based upon whatever. And that is also another tactical thing. I get it. There's all sorts of tonalities. There's call tracking technology, which I think is a little deceitful. The fact that the dialer now will dial from the area code of the person that you're going to be prospecting, because statistically that shows to be a big improvement. But this is my methodology. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just what I do. And nobody ever really took the time to say, like, okay, go hunting, go prospecting. Now, how do you do that? What does that look like? What does that message look like? And keep in mind this, that everybody pretty much, smartphones, there are more smartphones in the world today than there are toothbrushes. And so when Steve Jobs made this big announcement, he didn't call this a phone. He called this a new way to communicate with one another. And if you think about your smart device, there are so many different ways that you can leverage this, from a phone perspective and an email and a text message and a social media perspective. And I think that we end up getting limited and limiting ourselves to what the communication touch points that are out there today, that we could potentially be communicating with people, to remind them, to talk with them, to interact with them, and to engage them. And I will leverage every one of these channels possible in order to be able to make sure that I'm communicating on the level that people want to communicate on. A couple other quick things, value. So I'm always trying to bring more value to the people than they can bring to me. Obviously, the cash exchange is great, but if a customer is going to be a great customer, they're going to refer people. That's phenomenal. But if I can bring you value, I could bring your business a solution that helps it to grow or makes your life better. In addition to that, what else can I make a part of that opportunity to bring additional value? Who can I introduce you to? What events can I bring you to? Making it about the prospect or the customer in the initial stages and asking questions and listening a lot more is always been the number one sales tactic. So once you're actually on the playing field, taking notes, asking questions, because of the fact that they're going to tell you the answers to the test, as long as you're willing to be able to ask the questions and pull that out of them. Repeat back to them, clarify, is really important. Understanding their goals and objectives. I don't mind it when people present to me some ideas, but I also want to be very specific in the fact that I'm also a buyer, and I spend a lot of time with salespeople, and a lot of those salespeople don't even, I explain to them what my problem is, and they don't present a solution to that problem. They just create more problems for me. So uncover the pain points. And then I also am a numbers guy. I think that it's very important that if you're going to put out $1, that you should see a return for that $1. And I make those decisions based on my business the same way. If I'm going to buy something, I want it to have a tangible return on investment. So the average number of customers, an increase by 10% would be dollar amount, the amount of time committed. So typically when I'm consulting, I'll ask people, what's your average selling price of your product? And it's $100. And how much are you looking to grow your business? And they'll say, well, by 10% or 10 customers. And I'll be like, okay, so great. You want to grow by, $1,000. So I build out the marketing tactical strategy behind that based upon the numbers that they provide me with. And if I can't get to those numbers, then it's not really a good business fit for any of us. And that's what I look to do with, all the people that I end up working with. Alignment. Do we have alignment on the meeting? Are the right people going to be in the room? I'm definitely going to challenge you a little bit with presenting some additional ideas or bringing some expertise to things that you might not be thinking about. I will, in the follow-up meeting, so in the value meeting, in that initial consult, problem solving, finding out about your business, when I come back for the follow-up meeting, I'm definitely going to talk to you about why I'm qualified. I won't do that very much in that initial meeting. Like I'll give you the cliff notes that you're going to need. But when I come back in, I'll give you the depth and the body of the work as to why I think I'm the right person to solve your problem. And then I get into the goods and the services, the budget, presenting the idea as to how we can solve that. You definitely obviously want to be with a decision maker and a person that has signing authority, but at the same note, you never want to overstep the person that might be the decision maker in 5 years from now. Remember, I get back to, I want to be connecting with everybody within the organization. I don't want to just be selling something when people are in buying mode. So I want to make sure I treat everybody with respect. And I also want to understand the contracting process as well. Is there a certain threshold on the size of the PO? Because if there is, then you're going to know whether or not you're going to get that deal sooner than later. What's your legal process look like? What's your fiscal or your budgeting year? So I want to understand your contracting process as well. It's going to be very helpful. Let me talk to you a little bit about a case study that I recently did. So I've got a high-end print publication called The Icons of Youngstown. And we're getting ready to launch that in about 45 days. And so we've been out prospecting and working in the Youngstown community where the book is actually launching to procure or curate icons. And it's a unique marketing advertising opportunity. And so this has happened multiple times, but this just happened this week. So I thought I'd share with you. Everybody's looking for the magic bullet these days. I get so many people, well, I post on social media, I didn't get nothing out of it. And if you're expecting Twitter to sell something, then you're right. Twitter's not going to sell anything for you. Either is LinkedIn, either is Facebook, but it's going to create awareness and micro touch points with people, especially if you're following, liking, sharing, and engaging with them. And same thing with the rest of these things as well. Like emails really never sold anything, but the person behind it has. So this Magnolias on the Green this week signed on to be in the Icons of Youngstown, which that's been 10 months worth of prospecting. So hear me out. We have followed one another bidirectionally on social media. We actually like to share and comment on their posts, and they do ours as well. We've sent them emails for individual meetings. We have called them in follow-up to those individual meetings. No response. We did a book drop. So we've got Pittsburgh is the parent company. They've put out a book 3 times. So we leveraged that book to show our case or what the final product's going to look like. So we dropped that book off 5 months ago. And then we follow up again. And we carry on with the process of social media email. And obviously at this point, we've had probably 8-10 touches with email and phone and drop-ins, and not counting like all the social media encounters. So recently we started running Facebook ads, and the owner of the business completed a Facebook lead ad. So that piqued our interest as it did theirs to follow back up again. So in the meanwhile, call and email resulted in nothing. So this past Tuesday, I made it upon myself to go pop in with a book, and the business owner was there. And that individual came out, and she was very gracious with her time and said, I've been meaning to call you. I've seen your social media. I've got your emails. I got your phone call. I got your book. It looks great. And then we also got a reference from somebody else that's in the book. So I'm very happy that you stopped in today. Now, if you want to point the magic bullet to any one of these bullet points as to what the conversion was, I'm comfortable in circling it and saying all of it. Most organizations, they struggle with the fact that they want to know where they're spending their marketing dollars. And that one email created a link that brought somebody back to the website that ultimately ended up creating a conversation with a salesperson that resulted in a deal. But the fact of the matter is that funnels are not horizontal from a top to bottom perspective. They're not linear at all. They're all over the place. And so, yeah, it's great that if you can identify, where you're going to spend your money and your time, in macro trends, but the reality is I don't even think that that's a reality. I think that there's a necessity that based upon your industry and the way that we're now digesting information in such a fragmented way, that there's a necessity to show up on the micro level on social media from the awareness game perspective, to have an augmented strategy with direct email, and phone, and then have an overarching company strategy to where a marketing person is providing you with air cover to create all these touch points. Otherwise, if we didn't have, and that the good old fashioned roll your sleeves up, hustle, and have stick-to-itiveness in the sales process, we don't get that. We don't get this opportunity. And we certainly don't get it if, we're not doing all these other little things along the way. This probably could have been the Seinfeld webinar. So as we come down the stretch, Q&A is coming up. Customer base. This is probably the most overlooked. Aspect of all sales. We get so focused on net new opportunities, lifeblood of the business, that we fail to expand the existing wallet share with people that are our customer base that could potentially be referring other people. Loyalty programs, the 80-20 principle, protect the IB, install base. Don't let other people become them, and look for the opportunities. And on average, it costs 5 times more to generate business with a new lead than expand the existing business with the existing customer. It's the nature of the beast that we always want to get out and go with the new thing, but don't ever underestimate the power of the existing person as obviously being very important. Attrition is bad for business. And if you're losing customers, that's part of the sales process. A lot of organizations don't compensate their salespeople on, retaining customers. And that's more of a cultural thing. That's more difficult thing to fix. But as a salesperson, you should want to maintain an existing customer base regardless of whether or not you get compensated on it for it or not, because that is not another one that's a connector that could be connecting you with another opportunity along the way. One thing that I didn't really kind of address is the pace issue. So one of the things that I see a lot of times, and this actually happens to me in my own business, is that we just bought some marketing automation software, and the marketing automation software does some really fantastic things. We're able to actually expand that to customers and put them on that solution as well. And it gives you better, deeper, more analytics. It helps you to nurture business in an automated way. And it provides all sorts of interesting lead scoring and whatnot opportunities. I vetted a solution for 60 days, for at least 2, if not 3 months. And, it's interesting in that I explained to people, like, here's what I'm doing, here's my business. And there's always a sales manager on the other side that's forcing the issue to close out a deal this week, this month, this quarter. And we condition our people in business, especially if you're a publicly traded company, that your best deal is going to come at the end of the quarter. If you're in car sales and you're a buyer, that like at the end of the month, like if your car dealer has not hit their number, like you're going to get a sweet deal. And pace on both ends is very important. A lot of times from a sales perspective, we put the need above our need is obviously closing a deal and making money above the customer's needs of making a good investment into something that's the right fit. And so I think that you always need to be mindful of the fact that the person on the other side of the table is only going to be able to be ready to sign when they're ready to sign. And as much urgency, and that's also obviously a part of a sales factor, isn't necessarily always a good thing. Like, nudging them is great. We have a promotion. Sometimes you use that. Obviously, I have an email that use that tactic, to try to accelerate the pace. But if somebody's really just not ready to sign, I've seen so many people, and from a sales perspective, just be like, they don't have all their ducks in a row. They've not presented a good business case. They've not aligned the business strategies, the ROI, the investment, the time frame, and all these things. Like, somebody wants me to buy marketing automation software now versus in July when the conference is like 30 days away, obviously there's two different conversations. So pace, make sure that all those things are in line. If you put enough things in the top of your funnel, in the middle of your funnel, pace will become less of an issue come the fact that you need to close deals at the end of months and quarters and weeks. So this said, DOYO Live is dedicated towards the ongoing professional development of marketing, business, sales, and design professionals. We do that through our webinars that are free, workshops, in-person speaking. I'd love to come out to your business and speak to your sales team or your marketing team about this very topic. And we have a conference that takes place one time per year. It's going to be August 1st and 2nd. We have selling opportunities and coursework, how-tos, keynote speakers that will inspire you, that will give you information to learn. Early bird tickets are $150. We've sold out our venue the past 2 years. We've moved down to the DOYO, and it's a great networking opportunity as well. So over 500 participants, 350 to 400 unique businesses. Use the promo code DOYO 2018 to save $10 off tickets. Visit DOYOLive.com. That's your site to learn more about the conference. We just announced our breakout session, some of our breakout session speakers for the conference today. So thanks, Dr. Mike, for dropping by. I really appreciate that. And that's what I got. If there's anybody that has any questions, please let me know. I'm here to try to be, again, a resource for you. People call me, email me, text me all the time about questions about this. And then, you know, the other side of my business, in addition to providing this conference, is that we do, like I said, do workshops and do talks and things like that. So if you have a need, follow up, shoot me a text or an email. We'll get together. We can just get together and talk about sales or marketing over coffee. In any case, I appreciate you stopping by today. This was recorded, so it will be made available on demand. And I hope that you have just an amazing day. Thanks so much. We'll see you.